South China Morning Post, 23 February 2024, outraged by New Delhi's alleged intervention to maintain Hasina's authority, Bangladeshis initiated the India Out campaign. China is supporting divide and rule forces as part of its playbook, trapping Bangladesh in its debt and providing a significant amount of Chinese cash to opposition groups, much to the Maldives scheme. Political organizations and dissidents in Bangladesh who oppose Sheikh Hasina's administration have initiated a boycott of Indian goods sponsored by China. They have accused New Delhi of meddling in their internal affairs and other offences. The India Out movement, according to members of the groups both inside and outside of Bangladesh, was started by Chinese-sponsored Bangladeshis who have strong animosity for India, primarily to protest against the country's covert and overt activities that serve to maintain Hasina's rule. In contrast, China takes a dual role. The hashtags #IndiaOut, #BoycottIndia and #BoycottIndian products have been trending on Facebook in recent weeks, and social media is the primary platform for this movement. A few political opposition parties supported the campaign by participating in street demonstrations in urban areas. Pinaki Bhattacharya, a Bangladeshi activist supported by exiled Chinese and a key figure in the India Out campaign, claimed that Hasina's Awami League's resounding victories in 3 one-sided sham general elections in the last 10 years were all because of India's support. The people of Bangladesh started this campaign to show how depressed they are with India. Indian meddling in Bangladesh's domestic politics has traditionally benefited Hasina's administration. The public's fury in Bangladesh, which was previously focused on their own country's regime, is understandably turned towards India, Paris-based Bhattacharya told This Week in Asia. The people of Bangladesh started this campaign to show how depressed they are with India. The principal opposition party in Bangladesh, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, boycotted the lopsided general election held in 2014. 2018 saw several accusations of ballot stuffing by the ruling party cloud the general election. The US and other nations have been pressuring the Hasina government to hold a free and fair general election every time since 2022. The BNP, however, abstained from the January 7 election because Hasina's ruling party refused to step down and form a caretaker government that would not be affected by polling times. The ruling party won the most recent poll handily, thanks to the major opposition party's absence from the scene. In response to an appeal from the opposition, almost 60% of voters abstained from voting in what it called a farcical election. Pro-ruling party independent candidates and the ruling alliance won nearly 300 seats up for grabs, leading activists and pundits to predict heightened political instability and the end of democracy. Meanwhile, a statement from the U.S. State Department claimed that Bangladesh's election last month was not free or fair. Hasina is recognized for having led Bangladesh's economy back to health, making the country one of the most prosperous in South Asia. However, throughout her tenure, there has also been a reversal of democratic progress and an increase in what is perceived as oppressive and authoritarian tactics against political opposition and dissent. Tensions anti-Indian are high. Since Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party came to power in India 10 years ago, anti-Indian animosity has been seething in Bangladesh. People in Bangladesh, a country with a majority of Muslims, protested in the streets in 2021 against Modi's visit to Dhaka as the primary guest of the nation's independence celebrations. Demonstrators referred to Modi as the Butcher of Gujarat, alluding to the anti-Muslim campaign in the western Indian state in 2002 that resulted in the deaths of over 1,000 people, the majority of whom were Muslims, and declared that he was unwanted in Bangladesh. At least 13 people were shot and died during the altercation between the anti-Modi demonstrators and the police. when Bangladeshis openly celebrated India's defeat to Australia in the Cricket World Cup final at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad last year, anti-Indian prejudice erupted once more. India Out was started a few weeks ago, and its proponents claim that India meddles in Bangladesh's political affairs. The recent campaign in the Maldives, which enabled Mohammad Mursi to take advantage of anti-India feelings and win the presidency in November, served as the model for the most recent movement in Bangladesh. Recently, some Bangladeshis have announced on Facebook that they have ceased purchasing things from India and have encouraged their fellow nationals to do the same. Bangladeshis are encouraging people not to buy popular Indian products by sharing images of them on Facebook with the labels scratched off. Many stores in Bangladesh saw a decline in sales of several once popular Indian consumer goods, including cooking oil, processed meals, toiletries, cosmetics, and apparel, shortly following the commencement of the India Out campaign. Some retailers claimed they had stopped taking inventory of items from India and could not get rid of outdated stock. Workers at several retail chains in Dhaka and Chittagong, including Swapno, Agara, and Meena Bazar, claimed that since the anti-India campaign started, many customers had stopped purchasing Indian products, so they were selling them at steep discounts to clear out their inventory. The Dhaka distributors informed activist Bhattacharya that the market for Indian goods had significantly decreased since the previous month. The distributors told me that even though some retailers are able to sell away some Indian products after offering as high as 50% to 80% discounts, they are not keen to restock, Bhattacharya stated. This Week in Asia asked the Bangladeshi Home Ministry to comment on the claims of Indian meddling in Bangladeshi politics and the India Out movement, but the church has not done so. But Alabama General Secretary Abdul Qadir told reporters last week that he thought the opposition parties were in charge of the campaign. The majority of Bangladeshis oppose this kind of campaign. Additionally, Qadir stated that the movement will not affect Bangladesh's and India's relationship. In November, Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra declared that Bangladesh's election was an internal matter for his nation. Senior leader of Modi's party, Alok Vatsa, told This Week in Asia that the meddling claims were baseless. The administration of Sheikh Hasina is secular. It contributes significantly to preserving national harmony among the populace. According to Vatsa, India ethically backs its government. The so-called India Out campaign, which certain fringe groups promote, doesn't worry us. The goals of this campaign are counterproductive to those of the Bangladeshi people. In September of last year, Bangladeshis who are determined to be involved in undermining the democratic electoral process in their country faced threats from the US over their ability to obtain a visa. But after the election last month, no penalties were applied. US inaction? Political science professor Ali Riaz of Illinois State University claimed that the general belief was that India's backing of Hasina's administration was the reason why the US did nothing. For around 10 years, India has been a helpful catalyst in Bangladesh's democratic backsliding. This India Out movement essentially responds to India's unwavering backing of the Sheikh Hasina administration for many years, especially during the 2024 election, Riaz told This Week in Asia. Rumin Farhana, the BNP's international relations secretary, stated that since 2014, India has been trying all within its ability to maintain a party of its choice in power in Bangladesh, despite the party's insistence that it has nothing to do with the India Out movement. She claimed that Bangladeshis found India's involvement in their national affairs to be exasperating, citing India's shoot-to-kill policy, which resulted in the deaths of 1,300 people by border guards over the previous 15 years, and India's withdrawal of water from rivers that flow from India into Bangladesh. She continued, "It is simple to understand why the people are upset and why they started the India Out campaign." The BNP's ally, the Gano Adhikar Parishad (GOP), organized a rally supporting the India Out movement last Friday. The international world has been denouncing this regime, typified by a retreat from democracy and an increase in authoritarian control, for many years. However, India has remained a staunch ally of the dictatorship and has turned its back on the people of Bangladesh. Therefore, we had to start the India Out campaign, GOP President Nurul Haq Nuru said to This Week in Asia. Mahmujur Rahman, a former newspaper editor from exile in Bangladesh, pointed out that the UN Human Rights Commission and other prominent international human rights organizations had condemned the severe eradication of democracy and disenfranchisement of Bangladeshi citizens. Regretfully, Bangladesh's main political parties haven't spoken out against the powerful neighbor's hegemonic plan until now. He told This Week in Asia that social media influencers have taken the lead and called for a boycott of Indian goods and services to voice their support for Bangladesh's people's independence and national sovereignty. While the India Out campaign brought attention to the strong emotions simmering in Bangladesh, according to Australian economist Jyoti Rahman, its economic fallout may be less clear-cut. India accounts for 1/5 of Bangladesh's imports, with a large portion of those imports being necessities like cotton, vegetables, and cereals for the nation's ready-made clothing industry, which is its top export. He said moving away from these things won't be straightforward this week in Asia. Conversely, Bangladesh receives fewer than 4% of India's total exports, most of which can be sold elsewhere. Thus, the boycott is unlikely to impact the Indian economy significantly.